This is Tipping Point Radio. I'm Craig Merriweather, and you're listening to The Mastermind Show. Your most difficult emotions do not have to rule your life. You can become bigger than your problems by letting your body rewire the brain. Being with your emotions rather than being your emotions allows them to change. Your feelings, even your most challenging feelings, no longer have to be the enemy inside. But how can we bring peace to the inner wars that are in the way of having the life we want? Inner relationship focusing, also known as focusing, is a simple yet profound awareness process that is based on research that allows the power of your body to rewire your mind. You can learn a way to get calm and access your larger self, even in the most stressful situations. Even better, you'll be able to process reactive and emotional states so they don't bother you in the future, which results in lasting positive change. For more than 30 years, Dr. Weiser Cornell has been exploring, teaching, and writing about the mysteries of emotional process, including the paradox of how we become more whole by acknowledging our parts, how the most despised places in us contain our greatest treasure, and how the body's felt sense, held in a compassionate state of presence, is the key to change. Now here's my interview with Dr. Weiser Cornell. Hello, Ann. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Great to be here.
I'm so interested in your work because it revolves around self-sabotage, negative self-talk, regret, and feeling stuck in your life. And I think that's such a great starting point to maybe introduce your work about focusing and the books you have written. And maybe you could just kind of give us all an introduction to your work and how it's helpful.
Okay, well, I have been fascinated by the problems of being stuck, being unable to take action that we know would be right for us, that would carry our life forward, and those painful issues that you mentioned of regret and what's called self-sabotage and resistance, although I wouldn't call them that, and that's part of the answer, is how we talk about ourselves. And I've been fascinated by all of these things really since my 20s, and primarily, of course, first because I myself felt painful writer's block, painful stuckness in many areas of my life. So I was a student and later a colleague of Eugene Gendlin, who developed the focusing method of body awareness, ways of sensing from a body level what our organism is telling us about the directions we need to go and what's in the way. But I have also adapted and expanded that work along with my colleague, Barbara McGavin, so that it was especially applicable to these really challenging life issues of stuckness, self-sabotage, what we can call the darker places in life. And also I was a student of linguistics. My degree is in linguistics. So I've made it a specialty to look at the ways that language can either facilitate or not facilitate transformation and change. And today I have the good fortune of being able to work in many countries, and yes, I have some books, but yes, what were you going to ask?
Oh, well, I was just going to say, I'm interested in your work with linguistics because you said a few minutes ago it's all about how we talk about ourselves and what we're going through. And it really kind of comes down to that glass half full, half empty. You could have two people going through pretty much the same kind of things, but somebody has hope or sees the maybe positive nature of how this is working out or going to work out, and another person is just hopeless. And it seems that it's a lot of the self-talk we have.
That's right. The language we use to talk and think about ourselves and our issues has a huge effect. And I show this to people relatively quickly. I mean, you may be saying, for instance, I am angry or I am sad. And just try shifting your language so that you say, something in me is angry. Something in me is sad. And notice what happens. And what most people, did you want to say what you noticed?
Well, I was just going to say, I am language is so powerful because it defines, you're defining who you are as, you're not feeling sad, you are just a sad, angry person.
Exactly. It's about what we identify with and then choosing to disidentify but stay in connection. So I am sensing something in me is angry, very angry. I can still have my angry feelings, but they don't take me over. And that the verb to be, the is often the culprit. Now, when we say that something is something, either ourselves or a situation or another person, that person is just a terrible person, or the situation was a betrayal, or I am worthless. All of these use of the verb to be as a label of identification. And then we learn to notice that happening, step away from that, and shift our language, which is why we wouldn't want to say something is self-sabotage or is resistance, but we would use different language. So for resistance, we might say something doesn't want to. Something is not wanting to go there, and feeling how that makes a big difference in how flexible we then are, how much we have available in terms of possible actions. Mm-hmm.
Well, you mentioned, that situation is a betrayal. And to some people, there's no other way of looking at it. How would you, if somebody went through a situation where, let's say a divorce or there's an affair in the relationship, can someone else look at that without feeling betrayed or taken advantage of?
Right. Right, and you might think, oh my gosh, I need to help this person change their view, to call it something else other than betrayal. But I wouldn't go there yet. I would take a much smaller step. I would say, yeah, something in you calls it a betrayal. And so it's not trying to change someone's mind, or if we're talking about ourselves, we're not trying to change our own mind, because that arouses resistance. When what is here isn't allowed to be here, when it's not accepted as it is, there's a kind of fight that arises inside. So just something in you feels really sure that that's a betrayal, and then being able to turn toward the emotions that come there because it feels like it's being called a betrayal. And what happens is that curiosity is aroused, and then the curiosity is, well, maybe there is some other way to look at it. But that emerges from the process itself. A lot of this is about process rather than things being fixed or stuck in certain ways.
Well,
does that make sense?
Yeah, well, it does. Yeah? But let me come to another word, because what you just said made me think of this, and the word is acceptance. And it seems, though, that if you kind of come to terms with these things, maybe people might be afraid they're going to end up a victim.
Right. Yeah, that word acceptance has a lot that it brings with it. Does acceptance mean simply looking at what is and saying that is true right now? Or does it mean being resigned, having no further wish or impulse to try to change things? So for me, it doesn't mean the latter. It means just looking at what is. But the other thing is, and many people talk about acceptance nowadays. There's a whole branch of therapy built around acceptance. Mindfulness is often about acceptance. What does can we ask ourselves to be accepting? Can we say, I need to accept that. I need to be accepting. I have a book called The Radical Acceptance of Everything. I, too, think acceptance is a good idea. But I don't think that we can ask ourselves to be accepting. I don't think it works. I actually don't think it works to try to change our emotions, to try to make ourselves feel different emotions, ever. So what I would like to look at is what is the procedure of acceptance? What is it that makes acceptance happen? If it isn't, then I say to myself, now I should be accepting, that isn't really going to work very well. What is the procedure of acceptance? And I believe one procedure that I've developed is to say hello to what you're aware of. So like an acknowledgement, like, oh, I am sensing a terrible pain in my heart from these recent events that have happened. I say hello to the terrible pain in my heart. I acknowledge the terrible pain in my heart. Now, that is something I can do. It would be too big a leap to say I acknowledge the pain. It would be an even bigger leap to say it would be too big a leap to say I accept the pain. It would be a much even bigger leap to say I accept the events that caused the pain. But what I can do is acknowledge and say hello. So that's what's possible. And it leads to acceptance. In effect, it is acceptance without being somehow trying to make ourselves be accepting.
Remember Michael J. Fox, the Back to the Future actor, Family Ties actor. Of course, he's dealing with Parkinson's disease and has been for about, 10 years or 15 years or so. And I remember reading one of his books, and he said in the book, it was on an interview, the Tonight Show or something, and he said, I can accept that I have Parkinson's disease. I don't have to be resigned to be a Parkinson's patient forever. And there's a big difference between just because you're accepting this is, you may be angry or depressed or going through an emotional rough time, doesn't mean you have to be resigned to be an angry person forever.
Beautiful. Very well said. I love it. Yeah. It has to do with time then, when you put it that way, that acceptance is in the here and now. And I do think that is where transformation happens, always happens, by acknowledging, accepting, and so on, how it is now and how we feel right now. And then change is possible from there, not in the future, not in the past.
But we want that transformation now, and I think this is where a lot of people, and myself included, we're feeling this way, and we've had these events or circumstances happen to us. We're feeling angry, we're feeling sad, and we want change now. We want to transform now. We want to feel better right now.
Absolutely, of course, no wonder.
Yeah. But is that even possible, or do we have to accept that we're going to feel like this for a while, and maybe down the road, hopefully, we'll feel better?
The truth is that transformation is always possible. But it is this funny little paradox. Carl Rogers wrote something like, I've learned that I change most easily when I accept myself as I am, without the change. And when I say, right now, here and now, there's such an urgent longing for change. I can really feel how much I wish my life were different, and these reactive states that I fall into where I'm angry, when I'd rather be calm. Yes, that's how it is right now. And at that moment, you're closer to change, but you don't know whether it will actually happen or not. There's no guarantee. And if there's a part of us that would like a guarantee, we say hello to that.
Well, it seems to me that if you're going to accept, then you really need to have a present state of mind. You need to be in the now, you need to be in the here, you need to be in awareness of the present moment. And yet, a lot of these situations, we're filled with regret, or we're filled with future thinking of how things are going to be better, and it's hard to stay present. And we just end up in this cycle, it seems like. How does the cycle get broken?
Well, I even have a term for that. Because I agree with you. There's something required for this kind of process to work well, and that is that we be in a kind of larger state, like our largest self inside, not stuck in the small self that gets into a reactive state, but a state of greater calm, greater ability to turn toward what's happening. I call that self-in-presence. And then the question becomes, so how do I move into self-in-presence, especially when that's a challenging thing to do, when I'm full of regret, as you say, or anger or fear. But what I've already said would be the way to do it. That is, I move into self-in-presence by acknowledging what I'm actually feeling in this moment. And that doesn't really need a lot. It needs me to pause. I can't always pause, but maybe I can. And just notice, just become aware. I pause and I become aware. That includes my bodily sense of it. So I'm in my chest, I'm feeling this kind of gripping, or I feel a heaviness, and I'm sensing a lot of painful regret, a kind of self-blame. How could I have done that? I say hello to that. And the act of saying hello to how we're feeling and what we're experiencing puts us into that state of self-in-presence where the rest of the healing and transforming process becomes more available.
So if someone's dealing with maybe a long-term situation like an illness, cancer, something like that, that's a hard one to kind of wrap your head around and accept and try to transform around. What is somebody supposed to do in a situation like that?
Well, you may know people who have serious illnesses who are happy, who are amazingly well-functioning, or who have a kind of calm, even blissful state about life and the universe. Just because something happens to us doesn't predict or require certain reactions. And so we remain curious. What is this? What is this in me? There's certain reactions that are kind of expected in our culture, like somebody dies and you're sad, or you get a divorce and you're either sad or angry. But actually, our reactions are idiosyncratic. Each of us have unique reactions to the things that happen to us. And the more we get in touch with what is our own emotional state, in fact, get into the precise detail of it. Not just, well, of course I'm angry, anybody would be angry, but, what is this precise anger? What is this precise suffering? Now, maybe I'll use myself as an example. About, what month is it? About 14 months ago, I was hit by a car while I was walking in my neighborhood and thrown 40 feet with my pelvis fractured in 2 places. And so immediately my life changed in a lot of ways, and I went through an often painful recovery process. Well, I had this focusing process with me during that recovery, and I was able to be with the feelings that arose in me, not just suffer from them, but turn toward them and accompany them. And feelings of helplessness, suffering, the feelings that felt the part of me that felt sure that I was never going to get any better, the worry about whether I was getting the right treatment, whether I ought to find ways to do more, all of those things that arose. And in any illness, or serious accident, you'll see a whole series of things arising for people. Can we accompany them as they occur? My healing has been amazing. I'm now completely recovered, and people, I graduated from physical therapy after just 11 months, and everybody was really amazed. And I think that I would give credit to that process of accompanying our own emotional states instead of just letting ourselves be tossed around by them. I like to say that when I grew up in the Midwest, we learned only 2 ways to be with feeling states. One was to be taken over by them. I am so angry. And the other was to suppress them. I'm not at all angry. And, of course, the suppressing was preferable. So if you let your emotions pop out for some reason, then you would kind of stuff them back as quickly as possible. We never knew any other way. We were never taught or experienced or modeled any other way than those 2 ways of being with emotional states. When I learned focusing from my mentor, Gene Gendlin, I learned a 3rd way, which is you get to have your emotions without being taken over by them. You get to be present for your emotional states without being knocked over or merged with your emotional states, and also not suppressing them or denying them. And what this means is that all the richness of our emotionality remains available to us. How it connects us with other people, how it gives us information about what we want and need. And yet, we remain with all our resources, with all our abilities to make decisions wisely and to take other people into account, to include kindness and compassion and so on. So I'm very excited. This is why I teach this work so happily to so many people, because I really think it makes a huge difference in how we experience life and how we experience our relationships with others, how we can bring our best full self into the world, which I think we need everybody to do.
I want to kind of differentiate this fine line between kind of accepting what you're going through and holding on to the emotions that may accompany the situation, like the anger or the fear or the sadness. And it seems like a real fine line to walk upon, that you want to accept where you are, but you also don't want to dive all the way into these emotions and, give it a big bear hug either.
Well, let me bring a linguistic point in here, Craig, because the anger, the sadness, the fear, those are nouns. What would happen if instead of using nouns for our emotional state, we used adjectives? Something in me is afraid. Something in me is angry. Something in me is sad. What happens typically is that our attitude becomes one of watching a flow rather than feeling like there's something that has to be either held onto or let go of. If your emotion is unchangeable, if it's the fear, the anger, the sadness, if we use nouns, we're telling ourselves that we've got something as unchangeable as a chair or a table. The fear becomes something I can either hold on to or let go of. But if I say something in me is afraid, and I may even add the words right now, something in me is afraid right now, then I realize, my whole body realizes what an emotion really is. You can even hear it in the word emotion. What an emotion really is something that's moving through me. It has an evolutionary process. I just need to watch it. If I don't identify with it, I can watch it. Yeah?
Yeah, well, I guess that's the definition of being stuck, is when these emotions get clogged up in your body, and then you're either exasperating disease or maybe even creating disease by holding on to that anger for so long.
Well, there may be a little more than that to stuckness. For example, when I really healed my writer's block, I found inside of me the part of me that didn't want to write, and was able to listen to what that part of me was trying to protect me from by not letting me write. And so it was, first of all, acknowledging that it was there, not wanting me to write. And then the further dialogue with it, where I let it tell me why it was stopping me from writing. Turned out it had to do with growing up with my sarcastic father, not wanting to have me go through that again by showing my writing to other people. And in the process of having that dialogue and really letting it know I heard it, that released, and it no longer needed to be like that. So what we discover is that we thought, that we had to figure out our feelings, deal with our feelings, do something to get rid of them or set them aside like they're furniture. And if instead we treat our emotional states like something alive inside us that can be listened to, and if you listen, it then reveals, changes, takes its next step, moves on to its next stage, life becomes very different that way. Very nice.
Yeah, well, it just, I guess, you just have to put in the time and effort to kind of see what's going on within you and dealing with it.
you're realizing that would take some time, huh?
Yeah, well.
Like, what else are we going to do with that time?
Yeah. Well, if you're having a busy day, how do you deal with that? If kids have to get to school, dinner has to be made, you have to get to work on time.
That's the hardest time, really. You're putting your finger on the most challenging thing, is that feeling of I don't have time. And yet, how long does it take? Let's say you're in the morning trying to both get the kids off to school and finish something and get your own lunch pulled together, finish that text to someone else. And you realize, I'm getting way too stressed right now. And you pause and put a hand on your heart. It took about 3 seconds to do that. You so have 3 seconds to put your hand on your heart and then just say hello to something in me that's getting so stressed right now. That took 3 more seconds. Take a deep breath. That takes 1 more second. We're now still under 10 seconds. So there's a part of us that thinks it's going to take too long. And that's the trouble. Not that it actually will take long, but a part of us thinks it's got to drive, push. There's not even a moment to pause and just put my hand on my heart and take a deep breath. But, the truth is that there is. And the more we experience that, and the very positive, enjoyable effects that are going to come from how much more relaxed we become at that moment, how much more available to the present and to what we need to do, then the more likely we're going to do it again the next time.
Yeah. Well, you hit something. Something came to me while you were saying that, taking the 10 seconds, 20 seconds to kind of realign yourself or figure out where you are. And maybe this is a guy thing. I don't know, but I tend to think that, okay, I'm going to need at least an hour because I'm going to have to figure out why I feel like this and then come up with a plan to fix it.
Uh-huh.
And that's why I end up, not taking the 20 seconds to kind of just breathe and be in the moment and see where I am and just kind of accept it and then, move on. It's because I don't have an hour to figure out how to fix my life.
Yeah, that's right.
And so
and I've got news for you. You won't figure out how to fix your life even in an hour, because figuring out and fixing is probably not going to ever work.
No, and I get that, because I do take an hour here and there and try to figure it out, and that it doesn't work, and then there's a hopelessness, because you say, well, if I can't fix this, then why would I want to think about it? If I'm not going to think about it, I better shove it down, and then all of a sudden I'm stuck. And
Definitely.
I
see that all the time, and it's kind of tragic. I feel sad about it, because if we think this way because we've been taught this, and it's all over our culture, that figuring out is going to be the way to make change. And I would suggest an alternative, and that people want to give this a try, and this is going to work better, and so less hopelessness. And the alternative is to get in touch with the body feel of the situation. That's going to take you down out of the mind into the fresh feel of it. Now, I'm not talking about necessarily feeling the emotions more strongly. What was discovered, and this is research on successful psychotherapy, the people who were changing successfully could get this bodily feel of their situations, and Gendlin named that a felt sense. Felt sense is his word for the bodily feel of the situation. So the tightness in the throat as you're in the traffic in the morning, or the heaviness in the heart as you contemplate a really stuck situation that you don't know the way out of. Well, those bodily feelings actually contain a kind of knowing of what's wrong and what would be right. We just haven't learned how to listen to them. So that's what I do in my work, is I show people how to listen to the bodily felt sense so that you get a holistic solution, a step of change. Oh, let me try this. And when you get that, which is not the same as figuring it out, you get a relief as well. Oh, I could try this. And you get a deeper breath. The feeling that you were spending time with releases. And you don't know for sure if what you thought of is going to work. That isn't how it happens. But the body has told you that's something I can try, or that's an insight that helps me, and then you can go give it a try. And it can happen in, it takes a little longer than the hand on the heart, but it can happen in 5 or 10 minutes.
Well, this is probably a good time to let everybody know about your website, and it's focusingresources.com, and I want you to talk a little bit about it because there's a lot of stuff on here, but there's some free e-courses that you can take that like a 5-day e-course, and there's some other stuff to classes and things you can take, and there's even a way to get with you and have a session with you, and just if you could maybe give us a quick tour around the website and let us know what you can find there.
Well, with pleasure. And I love to have people start with my free e-course called Get Bigger Than What's Bugging You. An e-course is something that comes by email, and it comes 5 days in a row, as you said, and each day you get a practice to try out and find out how it works. And so that's a great introduction to the work. And yes, we have also on the website a lot of 1-hour phone courses that we've done, one on releasing blocks, one on making decisions, and one on working with actual physical pain, things like that. Those are free. We've got articles and so on. Yes, I do sessions with people. If people want to try out this work through bringing an issue or a situation to me that's been feeling stuck, we can give a try at applying this method to it in a 50-minute session. And we, if people really know they want to learn this method, we have a CD set called Learning Focusing. We have my book, The Power of Focusing, or my second book, The Radical Acceptance of Everything, or my new book that's coming out next month called Presence, A Guide to Transforming Your Most Challenging Emotions. And then we have phone courses, phone seminars, where you're live with a teacher and a fairly small group of people to learn the processes with interaction and demonstration right on the phone. So you can do it from anywhere in the world.
There's reading through your website. There's a couple of things, and actually, before we start, one thing that caught my attention: you were talking about doing sessions with yourself. You can actually do those over Skype. You don't have to fly to where you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very good point. I do most of my sessions on phone or Skype, and again with people all over the world, and it's such a pleasure. Yeah. And we live in this world where that's possible, and this is definitely really not a problem at all. You don't have to be physically present to be guided through this work.
Since you're so into linguistics and this work you do is so powered by the words we say to ourselves, there's a word that I noticed on the website, and it was the enemy. And I think a lot of us have this idea there's a part of us that is the enemy to ourselves, our negative thoughts or our hateful thoughts towards ourselves or to others or the world. And there's this great quote on the site there. There are no enemies inside. Every part of us is trying to save our lives. And while it's a great quote, but some people might scratch their heads like, well, that cancer, I don't see how that's helping me, or these negative suicidal thoughts, I don't see how those are here to save my life. There seems my body has become a traitor, or my thoughts have.
Well, I'm not speaking of cancer when I say that. I don't mean illness. But when I say every part of me is trying to save my life, I mean our emotional parts. And many people say, I've got to get rid of my negative thoughts or my weakness, my vulnerability, my impulsiveness, my addiction, and so on. And what we have learned is that everything inside you is trying to save your life, it's not necessarily using the most effective strategies. So you discover what you have been trying to get rid of in yourself. If, instead of trying to get rid of it, you turn toward it and say hello. It's not the same as accepting that it will be there forever, as we pointed out, but it is accepting that it's there right now. And you turn toward it and say, hello, I'd like to get to know you better. Now, I recovered from an alcohol addiction using this method, and I found myself turning toward the part of me that wanted to drink to the point of drunkenness, and not telling it can do whatever it wanted. By that time, I had stopped drinking, but instead saying, I'd like to get to know better what you've been trying to do for me by, having me drink that way. Come to find out, this part of me that was impulsively drinking wanted for me to be able to feel my own creativity, my own spontaneity, to be able to relax quickly, to be comfortable in social situations. And by learning that was what that part of me wanted, and really saying, well, I really hear you, it's no longer going to be able to drink, but I can invite into my life more creativity, spontaneity, and so on, and that really started to happen. So the point is that even what you want to get rid of is trying to give you something good. You don't have to accept its strategy or its methodology for giving you something good, but you can thank it for having tried to do that, and use your dialogue with that part of you to learn what it is you really are needing in your life, and to start bringing that fully into your life from this larger state of self and presence.
Wouldn't that be amazing? If you have these feelings and these emotions are coming up, and these struggles, and you just kind of thanked your body for or your emotional state for, it was doing a bad job, but for trying to help and to protect you, badly protect you, but protect you. And
thank you for trying to protect me.
Yeah.
Thanh you for trying to guard me.
That
Thank
would
you.
be
And these are strategies we learned long ago, right? Very often they're what got us through a rough childhood. They were the best we could do,
mm-hmm.
and they're not something that's to be gotten rid of. They are something that can transform, but the process of transformation is one of turning toward. So we disidentify, we are no longer that, I am not that, and I turn toward that. So it's a process of inclusion, acceptance, and dialogue and transformation, using body awareness. Yeah.
And tell me if this is a good metaphor or not so good metaphor, but it seems to me it's like, just because you're wearing a coat doesn't mean you are the coat. You can take the coat off at any time, but at some points a coat is very handy, and maybe being angry is necessary at some time. You may not like the weather, so you wear, but you have to wear a coat. Maybe you need to be angry or sad or grieving, or maybe feel a little bit of regret, but that doesn't mean you are the regret or the anger.
That's right. Sure, that works fine. It is very important to not be our feelings. But it's also important to not be not our feelings. My mom, I'm very familiar, I have a very familiar memory of my mother, like tapping her foot, frowning, arms crossed, saying, I am not angry. And that wasn't very helpful either, So either being our feelings or trying to be not our feelings, neither one really helps. But this language, and I'd love it if you and your listeners would take away what I think is the most transformative sentence I've ever known, and I teach it all the time. It's in the e-course as well, and that is, I am sensing something in me feels, and then fill in the blank for what your feeling is. and take that into your life and practice it. Just let it become a habit. I'm sensing something in me feels tense. I'm sensing something in me feels worried. I'm sensing something in me feels, right, anxious. And take it into staff meetings, right? You know, someone brings up an idea that you're not so sure about. John, I'm sensing something in me feels a bit concerned about your proposal.
Yeah.
People are going to love it. And even if you don't say it out loud, it changes your own relationship to your feeling life. It becomes something that you have, that you can learn from, but you are not ruled by. So how to not be ruled by our emotions and not also be pushing them away.
Yeah. It seems like it's I've been listening. Oh my God, we've been going for like 40 minutes, and it's a beautiful process. But it seems it's like we're so caught up in maybe habit's not the right word, but the habit of these emotions, and this is the way we felt for so many years. So I'm just going to continue feeling like this.
Well, frankly, I think this work does need motivation and intention. If somebody is not too bothered by their emotional states, if you're not suffering, you might not want to put in the work and the intention to learn this method. The few little things that you can do in a few seconds, like putting the hand on the heart, why not? But to really get in there and get to know yourself better, that's a kind of commitment. Now, myself, I've been fascinated all my life with getting to know myself better. I've wanted to know myself better. I came from a dysfunctional family. Maybe that's, my dad was an alcoholic. My sister became an alcoholic. I certainly, as you know, I've told you, was a drinker for a while. I probably would be dead by now if I hadn't had some method of self-healing. And I wanted to do it myself. I believe in therapy. I think there's a place for therapists, but I think there's also a really big place for what we can call self-help, being on the journey of healing and discovery of our own emotional states. But it's not, it's not easy. It takes a kind of commitment. I would say if you're going to make a commitment to anything, make a commitment to yourself. Make a commitment to your own emotional healing. Your life will be better. You yourself would be a person you'd most want to make that commitment to. And your relationships will be better. And what you do with your life will be more fulfilling. But for some people, if the shoe doesn't pinch too much, they may not want to do this. And I do respect that too. I think my work is for those people, ultimately, who are either suffering enough or feel a sense of longing for more in their lives, that they are ready to put in a bit of an extra work, bit of extra time. Yeah.
Yeah, you just get to a point where you've had enough, and you
right.
demanded that change and that transformation.
And then you do have the motivation to put in a bit of time to learn the method. Now, we do feel that we've observed that if you just learn this as something to do by yourself, for yourself, it can slip away again. Like all good intentions. Like, I should do some focusing today, but I need to wash the cat, or, whatever. That's why when we teach this method in our courses, we teach what we call focusing partnership. And that is that you team up with another person, usually someone you met in our courses, but it could be anybody in your life, and just set aside maybe half an hour or an hour a week and meet with that person and trade the time. So let's say you and I have an hour. Well, half an hour will be my turn, half an hour will be your turn. And we train people to be the other person. Now, it's not doing therapy. It's simply being present. But in the presence of another person, this kind of inner exploration or dialogue is easier, especially if the other person has learned how to be non-judgmental and open. Well, we teach how to do that in our courses. Then you've got that time built into your week. Now, I learned this method, let's say, 43 years ago. I've been doing focusing with myself for 43 years. All that time, I've had a focusing partner, not the same one, but sometimes for 14 years at a time, the same, in a row, the same person that I would meet with weekly. And then it becomes something that is built into your life. And you know, no matter what else is going on, I'm going to have Sunday night for an hour when I meet with so-and-so, and this is going to feel better.
Well, we are kind of closing in on the clock, so this might be a great point to stop. Let everybody know again, the website is focusingresources.com, and lots to do there. Courses you can take. You can find out how you can work with Anne one-on-one. Also,
there's free stuff there. I just want to mention that if you're on the website and you're just not sure, you could just sign up for my weekly email newsletter, and that way you'll stay in touch with what I'm thinking about each week, and you can wait and see whether something moves you later. You'll see the announcements of the new books as they come out. And also, my email address is on the website. Ask me a question.
Yeah. And of course, links to Facebook and Twitter, and we scheduled this interview really quick, and so I appreciate you being able to come on the show and talk with us, because your work is so powerful and beautiful that when I heard about it, I definitely wanted you on and share what you do. So thank you so much for being willing to take your time.
Thank you so much. It's an honor and a pleasure. I've really enjoyed our conversation today.